Good afternoon, everyone. This is our webinar today. I'm Mark Elswig, president of Mark Elswig Company, Executive Recruiters. We work with advisors at wirehouse, regional, and independent firms. We help them find the right firm or venue, the best one for their business. And we also do a lot of work, especially in recent years, with them on succession planning, finding a customized succession plan that makes sense. That's a complex landscape that takes some real due diligence to navigate. And this is my 41st year, beginning of my 41st year in the business. And today we're going to be talking about a really important topic. And that topic is, how can advisors successfully and effectively communicate with clients? Because after all, some advisors are more successful than others, and it's not about, what kind of products they can offer, who's at a firm that's slightly better or slightly worse than somebody else. It's mostly about one thing. How effective are they at their ability, with their ability to communicate? Can they communicate with prospects and clients in a meaningful, effective, and persuasive manner? So today we have with us Nancy Bleeke Noel, who's an expert in client communications. She's written a best-selling book, Conversations That Sell for Financial Advisors. She's helped countless advisors over the years up their game and get a lot better at communicating with their clients. And as a result, she's helped them build much bigger businesses than they had before. So what we're going to do is I'll chat with Nancy just for 20 minutes or so. Then we'll open it up to your questions, your comments for the next 10 minutes. So it'll be a 30-minute total webinar. And then over the next few days, I'll get the video together and send it out to everyone who registered. So Nancy, thank you very much for being here. I'm really excited to get this underway, because this for a financial advisor, how to communicate. That to me is like the whole ball game. This is what it's about. So it's a very important subject for us to discuss. So I guess the best place to start is, I don't know, what inspired you to write your book? What were you doing at the time? And how did you come to all the insights that you have in your book?
Oh my God, that's a good question. It's interesting because I think sometimes people write a book and then they build a business around it and build
Hmm.
services around it.
Hmm.
I was a coach, consultant, trainer who then decided through because a publisher contacted me and said, "Hey, we're looking for people to author, but etc." And I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to take the time to do it because it is very time intensive. And
Sure.
they said, well, basically, it's what you're training. Just list it out. So I laughed that it's a 65,000 word process. That's what the book is, because it's a
Wow.
literal how to have conversations from preparation to the end of it. And so what was interesting is I have Conversations That Sell that I published in 2013, and then
Yes.
Conversations That Sell for Financial Advisors in 2024. But what inspired me for this was advisors. And what I realized over these last like 9, 10 years in focusing on working with advisors is
Hmm.
there's nuances to this relationship business that doesn't carry over to anyone in sales, but it's more nuanced, I think, because you're selling yourself mostly, as well as your expertise and processes and all of that. And so I joked, and I think I even wrote it at the end of the book. It's my love letter to all the advisors who I know do good work and who often are in the way of prospective clients deciding to work with them because people don't know how to buy financial services And
Right.
so they need a good guide and they can come at it very much like they're buying anything else, like a tangible product. But the advisor is the one that has to step into this role, even if they don't like that they're in sales, that they
Mhm.
are, because selling is nothing more than an information exchange that leads
Mhm.
to a confident decision or commitment. And so advisors need to help people and guide them from first contact through that first important decision to work with them so that then they can help them as an advisor with all their expertise. And so what inspired me were the advisors who needed a, a book that was very specific to them. And most advisors seem to really like systems, frameworks, processes. And so this lays it all out.
Right. Yeah, so that's good. So it's something that they can readily plug into
Oh, yes.
because it has a structure and it has processes. And I
Hmm.
guess that brings me to my next question. Let's say early on an advisor is talking to a prospect, how do they build trust with someone? What can they do to build trust with with a new
Prospective
prospect
client.
that they don't have an existing with whom they don't have an existing relationship?
Mm. It's interesting because we do an activity about this in my training. It is everything you do and say is being observed. So it really starts pre-conversation with anywhere they've seen you, right? So your online presence matters. If you're at an event and how you're operating and showing up, etc. And then if they schedule time with you, then also what's the communication and the prep like ahead of time that helps them be prepared for what the objective is, what the experience is going to be, etc. And then in the conversation, you build trust and rapport by being attentive to them, not being ready with a pitch or a spiel, but to be
Hmm.
ready to guide that information exchange, which is a conversation, to a productive conclusion. And so building trust and rapport is focusing on them, being curious, and very much being prepared.
Right. So basically, the advisor has to be like one part of it is the advisor has to be a genuine, sincere listener who wants to
Yeah.
help. And somehow, if you have that intention, it sounds like what you're saying is that's one of the ways
Mm.
that you can build trust.
Yeah, an advisor put it so well years ago to me. He goes, what I learned about collaborative selling, like through it, the biggest thing he said is that I don't have to wait until they're my client to help them. I get
Mhm.
to help them and show up as that helper from the
Mhm.
very first interaction. And he goes, so it's not like I'm different in my selling efforts than I am as an advisor. It's a
Right.
continuity. And that continuity, right, is what people trust.
Mhm. Right. So it's a continuous process. You're
Hmm.
basically, since you want to help them, you're basically starting your relationship early on, showing them that you have that
Mm,
intention.
exactly.
And that establishes trust.
Yes.
That's very interesting. I know in your book you have a term, what's in it for them that
Oh,
you
the
talk
whiff
about.
it.
The
The
whiff it.
whip it.
Okay.
I always
Yeah.
laugh if you're old enough. Devo's Whip It
Oh,
song, Whip
yes.
It Good.
I'm
Do
old
do do
enough.
do do
I
do.
remember that. I remember that. Yeah, perhaps you could tell us just a little bit about that, and because that sounds something like how that
It
fits in.
ties into what I was just saying. Yes. So,
Hmm.
with it is to me the underlying philosophy to a collaborative sales conversation or a
Hmm.
collaborative communication conversation. And
Hmm.
that if everything we do is done with the lens of and what's in it for them,
Hmm.
everything becomes easier for them. And when it's easier for them, it's easier for us. And so going back to that premise that they don't know typically how to buy what you're offering or how to make that decision confidently,
Hmm.
by us framing even the process that we're guiding them through, and then the
Mhm.
conversations and in all the interactions within it by always connecting to, and here's what that means for you,
Right.
that it changes, it changes their experience, it changes their confidence, and it just makes it easier.
Right.
And it's more work on the advisor's part because there's a lot of information that advisors have, right? All the
Mhm.
designations, all the knowledge, the tools, the software used to conduct their work. But all of that has to be adjusted into what's in it for the person in front of them because they don't want or need to know everything. They
Mhm.
need to know the information that's of priority and urgency and specific to them. And so I always say people have way too much information these days. And the advisor that can help them cut out the clutter and
Right.
focus on what's most important for them
Right.
is going to be the one that's memorable.
Yes, and that fits right into your first point that you're really that the advisor is really showing the prospect or client that they're a helping person, that they're there to help them, and they're coming at it from their perspective. No, I can see
Mhm.
why that's a memorable why that's a memorable phrase. So how does an advisor then move from oh, I don't know, pitching, shall we say, 5 reasons to buy. Here's why I'm great. How do you, here's why I'm the greatest. How do you move from that to kind of a more collaborative conversation?
Uh,
How do you do
It's
that?
so I always say ditch the pitch. Like, no one likes to be pitched because pitching
Right,
means throwing something at somebody, right? So
right.
how do you adjust that? Is you have to prepare for an information exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is first on seeking to understand so
Mm,
that you earn the right for them to care about what you're going to share. And then
mm-hmm.
whatever you share, you need to be able to make it viable, specific to them. And I always say, if you find yourself explaining anything that you can't then say, and Mark, here's why this matters for you, you
Right,
haven't earned the right for them to care about it or maybe even hear you
right.
saying it. And so I would say that that means you need to clamp your mouth, and then the words that should follow that are tell me about, and ask them a question. If you're going to be talking, for example, about um, somebody's, let's say, what they're doing regarding tax strategies around their investments or something like that. And you find yourself, starting to say, well, our philosophy is this, and we do that, and I do this, and my process. Wait, do you hear those words? Me, I,
Right.
etc. Me, I, my, I, me. If you hear yourself saying those words, you're not focused on the right thing. You need to get to you, we, our. And we and
Mhm.
our doesn't mean you and your team. It's you and the client. And it's funny, even the words I hear advisors talk to clients and they'll say, well, when I'm working with my clients, blah, blah, blah. You have now just depersonalized the people you work with. And it would
Mm,
be so much better and stronger for the person hearing that to say,
mhm.
well, when we work together, or if you choose to work with me, we are going to do this. And not depersonalize what you do. So word choice makes a big difference.
Right. So we is a word that expresses commonality of purpose, right?
We, us, our.
We,
Yeah,
us, our, and then you're sort of affirming, the advisor is affirming their value again in an ongoing way because they're part of the client, helping
exactly.
the client.
Hmm.
Very interesting. What are I don't know, do you have any thoughts on let's say how advisors should handle objections? How should they view an objection? I mean, because that's part of selling. There are always objections. Um, how should they approach that?
Well, I'm glad you said approach it versus handle again, because I always, here's my, again, tying into this collaboration, this focus on them.
Mhm.
Who wants to be handled? or
Mm-hmm.
overcome, right? Like you
True.
got to overcome objections. No, that indicates power, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to work through
Mm-hmm.
objections.
Mm-hmm.
We have to problem solve. So that's the mindset. An objection is not something that is a stopping point, a defense, whatever. It's an opportunity to problem solve again, collaboratively with that person. So what happens, right? Somebody says they ask you a challenging question, they give you an
Mm-hmm.
outright concern or objection, and the advisor starts telling them information that they believe is going to change their mind, right? So
Right.
I have a concern, or I don't even have a concern that, I'm not sure that we want to work with a solo advisor, or, I'm not sure that, working virtually is going to be right for us. Any kind of concern or objection. And the advisor
Mm-hmm.
starts telling them why that shouldn't be so, or,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a problem. And instead, seeking to understand and slow things down to where is that coming from? So here's an
Mm-hmm.
example, and I get to listen to recordings of prospects and
Oh,
advisors to be able to coach and give
great.
feedback. So this was just last week.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple, and the woman who is a very, she admitted she's an analytical, she was a CFO, so like that advisor had his job cut out for him in helping her. And she said, um, tell like, are you really a solo advisor? You don't have a team. Like that's how she posed it. And
Mm-hmm.
so he launched right into telling her how, well, I've designed my firm to be that specifically. And here's why I'm doing this. He just went into
Oh.
all this information. And
Mm.
and then he caught himself after I think it was 3.5 minutes of giving her information and remembered that he was supposed to ask her, well, what around that, is important to you for me to explain.
Right.
And it was basically, well, do we have access to our accounts if you're on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
a not challenging real reason for that question. And the other one was, who do I, how do we get access to our accounts? And what if something urgent happens and you're not available and we need you?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
he could have just answered those two questions instead of going into this, I designed this. It's been very purposeful. Maybe in
Mm-hmm.
the future I'll decide I want to blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was so much information, but that's an
Right.
example.
Yes, exactly. And I think what you're really saying is he has to look at the objection from a collaborative standpoint. What does it mean? Why is this person potentially bothered by the fact that he's a solo practitioner? And he
Or
has to understand where that person is coming
coming from.
from.
Yes, it
Yeah,
might not even be a bother. It might be a general interest. So
right.
you're right. It's continued collaboration, and you got to
Mm-hmm.
seek first to get to the root cause of that question or
Mm-hmm.
challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you've heard, a problem well defined is a problem half solved.
That's a good motto.
And that
Yes.
most times when people, if they even do say, oh, I think your fees are too high, which is an outright objection,
Mm-hmm.
it's still what's under that? What led them to that conclusion?
Right. Exactly.
Because now am I telling, well, the industry charges this. I mean, the industry charges this and this. And if you look and compare, blah, blah, blah. When maybe they're wondering, and I've heard this time and time, someone might just be wondering, ooh, how am I going to pay? Like, do I write a check for that every quarter?
Oh, right.
And so
Right.
they're more worried about cash flow than they
Right.
are the amount. So
Yes.
anyway,
And
you
no,
can go
exactly.
so
But
answer with the wrong information.
that's that's again part of collaborative listening because if you handle something, back to your earlier point, that's something external, right? Like a missile coming from outer space, a meteor from outer space. How do you handle it? So it's about a collaborative listening kind of a
Mhm.
process.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. How can advisors help clients make decisions? And I'm sure that's
Mm.
going to have something to do with collaboration too.
Well, how do we help them make decisions? It's about the entire conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you, at the very beginning, set an objective for what
Mm-hmm.
is going to happen at the end. And so
Mm-hmm.
I find advisors give agendas, not objectives.
Hmm.
It's
Interesting.
big difference. Agenda, support, and objective. So if I let them know at the beginning, you know what, by the end of our conversation today, you should have all the information you need to decide blank. That could be whether you'd like to take the next step in a process and meet again,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not, I'm going to be the right advisor to work with you. But you get that established at the front and then say, and so to do that, now I can give the agenda. We're going to spend time learning about you. I'll explain information that's relevant to you, be able to
Mm-hmm.
answer any of your questions. We'll discuss fees. So I'm laying it out from the beginning that there's a plan to our time
Mm-hmm.
together.
Ah.
And so then I lead that conversation of investigating first with my good questions, etc., going into facilitating, which is sharing information connected to them, making sure
Mm-hmm.
there's not any concerns or objections to work through. Then the end becomes this easy, I call it the consolidation. That's all it is. It's
Mm.
not a close, it's a
Mm-hmm.
consolidation. I'm bringing together everything, saying, okay, what I've heard you say is this, this, and this. And so, from what we've talked about so far, I look for their readiness. What do you think? How does this fit with what you were hoping someone could do for you?
Mm-hmm.
What final questions do you have about anything
Right.
we've talked about? And then through that, if that doesn't have them then say, here's what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
then we bring them back. I call it the three-step finish. Ask, determine readiness, and then if that doesn't bring the decision, then I need to confirm value. I need to bring them back to the with it. So, well, based on what you talked about, I'm confident that in working together, we'll be able to get
Right.
that clarity on your retirement date. Make sure
Right.
that your investments are tax, efficient, all those things. Pause and then ask them for whatever is specific. So, would you like to sign this service? Are you ready to sign the service agreement? Should we schedule the next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to get specific. Then after you get that decision, the end of the conversation, and this is the efficiency impact, I say, for
Mm.
follow-up and things afterwards, you got to get to agreement on specific next steps. Who is doing what, by when, and how? What are you doing? Is that an email? Is that a DocuSign? Is that whatever? But what are they committing to? And if you have a
Mm-hmm.
couple, making sure that you know whether Bob or Joanne is doing each thing, because now you've just, again, helped them as a guide navigate that so that when they leave, they're not both doing something or both thinking the other is.
Right, right. But again, the process has a structure, and
Oh,
as you ask those kind of, I don't know if we should call them closing questions, but as you ask those questions, you're getting a real sense as to where the person is in their process, and then
readiness questions, I
what you
call
need
them.
to do. What do you call them?
Readiness questions.
Readiness questions. That's a better
It's
phrase.
thoughts, feelings, and opinions
Right,
first, then
right,
decision or
right,
commitment.
right. Because readiness means you're really assessing where they are, and then based on that. That will dictate what you do
Yep.
next. That makes sense. So let me ask you sort of I guess a broad base question. Only because soon we'll open it up to questions and answers. I don't know if I know you have there are a lot of strategies that you have that you've outlined in the book, and actually you've shown us actually the value of choosing your language and having the right frame of reference. If there was one, let's say if somebody wanted to start out, start on, changing the way they talk to clients, where,
Hmm.
to become more effective, where's a good place? Where's a good place for them to start?
Um, I think it's by starting with your mindset and
Mm-hmm.
preparation.
Mm-hmm.
If going into it, and it's funny, I still have a mantra after all these decades. It's all about them, it's not about me. It's all about them, it's not about me. Say it three times. And so
Mm-hmm.
so when I go into it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm reminded that that's got to be my focus and that I'm there to guide a conversation, which is an information exchange. So it's
Okay.
with that, and then the preparation you do ahead of time. And everybody, advisors know they should prepare, but I don't believe complete preparation is done. And complete preparation is that I am mapping out the conversation from start to end. Not just what are the questions I'm going to ask or what is the information I want to share and how's my PowerPoints look and all of that, But
hmm
how am I establishing that objective? How am I
hmm
connecting with them as people before jumping into agenda? How am I
hmm
earning the right in the first few minutes to get into the deep stuff? Because you're talking about people's lives. And then what are my anchor questions? Then what are some key points I might need to be have available, like supporting materials if
hmm
necessary, but I have to adjust it. What, how am I very consciously going to make sure that they verbalize objections and concerns? And what is that specific commitment or decision that we're
hmm
seeking for? And whether it's done or not, what then are the specific next steps I've got to get clear on with them? I call it a collaborative commitment, right? We want a
Right.
collaborative commitment. And so prep mindset is always first, and
hmm
then preparation for the full conversation.
Right. So well, it almost sounds like you're almost like you're once you write out the steps, you're almost like visualizing kind of the exact kind of conversation that you'd like to have. That,
Visualization is really good.
oh,
Yes.
good.
Yes. And
Let's see.
practice, right?
Yeah.
And I always say not scripts. No one should write a script. You should
hmm
have an outline because a
hmm
script is only as good as the other person is following it too. So if you have a script and they don't, that's a really awkward, and they can feel that.
hmm Right. But I think that's a kind of preparation that's, it's a really detailed, involved preparation and it does involve visualization. So that
Yeah.
sounds like a good
I
technique.
say in 5 minutes, you can
hmm
make the notes and outline a conversation. Then spend 5 minutes. So I call it advance and active prep. In advance, you can outline the conversation, do your research. It's not stalking by looking them up online, connecting with
hmm
them on LinkedIn if they're there, etc. And then you need to do active prep, which are the minutes before the conversation, which is when visualize
Right. Right.
break your preoccupation, and really be ready to engage, because when they come into the conversation, they're not as ready as you are.
Right. Well,
So
that's
you've got to be ready to help them
right.
quickly be able to get into the flow, which again, it's not mechanical. It is a conversation. It is connecting with them as people, getting
hmm
away from the how are you today or how's your day going? More like, hey, what's been the best part of your week so far? Or something like something. Or if you've done your research, and you can say, oh, what a sporting, weekend. What game did you watch? If you saw something that let
Right.
you know that they're a fan, you don't say, hey, I saw that you're, a Green Bay Packer fan, Wisconsin, a Green Bay Packer fan, like, what do you think? So there's just a lot before in advance, and then those minutes before getting yourself together so you can
Right.
guide from the start.
Right. And having the right mindset, that's kind of where it all that's
Yeah.
kind of where it all begins. Let's see, let me take a
Oh, I know.
few
We're already at 28 after.
I know it's amazing. Let's see, we have a question right here. Um this one says, let's see. It says, do these strategies work virtually as well as in person? That- That's that's very
Very
interesting.
well. Yes, they
Okay, good.
do. Very well. People use it, the frameworks on phone calls. Video
hmm
calls are so much better when you can see each other and use the other communication tools that you have with you. But absolutely, we have conversations in all different kinds of modes.
Right, right. Okay, so that's good. Um, here's one. Let's see. Um, is there a difference if you're implementing this method with multiple decision makers? Meaning, I guess they mean two spouses or a
Yeah.
committee at a business.
Yeah, if it's a 401(k) plan or something.
Yeah, something like that.
The framework of a productive conversation remains steady, right? But it's a framework. And you
hmm
have to adjust to make sure that you're involving all the people involved it there,
Right.
So there's nuances for
hmm
having a conversation with more than one person.
Right. So you have to be an especially good listener, I suppose, when you have multiple people involved.
I agree with that. And you also have to be an even better facilitator, where you're making sure one person's not dominating and that you're extracting information and letting the other person also contribute and that you're speaking to both of them. And sometimes one a big value advisors give is getting couples on the same page. The number of conversations I've listened to where someone has said after hearing their spouse respond to a question,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
I
I
didn't
see.
realize that that's what you thought about this. You know, it's
Uh-huh.
it's 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 so powerful the value that advisors can bring into relationships.
Yeah, well, it sounds like being a therapist in a certain way, making sure that each party understands what the other, thinks and feels. So, let me take just maybe one or two quick ones. Um, how long, here's one. How long does it take to see results if I start on this method? Um, I don't know if you could,
From the first conversation that you start applying it. I
right.
mean, you will see. I just started a cohort of training last Tuesday, and they have it
Mhm.
every other day. And between Tuesday and Thursday, several of the advisors already had a success by
Oh.
applying just 20% of what we'd only talked about 20% of it at that point. So, and the great thing is these are just human communication skills. So you can
Hmm.
practice them at home with your
Right.
friends. Like there's no shortage of opportunity to be a better listener, to be more curious, to make sure that there's focus on the other person's feelings, thoughts, backgrounds, knowledge versus just your own. There's no shortage of opportunity to do that.
Right, because I'm sure you can apply this in a broad-based kind of fashion. So let's just take one more. Um, one last one. Let's see here. Let's see. It says how it says how do I move from asking discovery type questions to this new method without feeling awkward?
Hmm. Think anytime you're doing something new, there is a little bit of awkwardness in it.
Hmm.
But discovery questions fit right into this collaborative way.
Hmm.
Because we are discovering, and what I say is actually what our questions help them
Hmm.
discover and
Hmm.
clarify what's important to them, etc. And it helps us uncover information that allows us to make a good recommendation and connect value.
Right. That's good. So I'll guess I'll ask my final question. I mean, for our listeners who are interested in your work and in really really learning this method in a way where
Mhm.
they can really start to apply it like each and every day, what's a good next step? How do they contact you, or
Yeah.
what would be a good next step in their
Hmm.
journey,
Well,
so
a
to
good
speak?
next step, it depends on what you want. If you want to talk about your situation to see if this would work for you, and then
Hmm.
I can make a recommendation. Is the book right? Is the training right? What would be helpful? I
Hmm.
offer 30-minute free sales strategy coachings, and it's you give me a specific topic situation that you want question you want to work on, and we spend 30 minutes together working on it. And then from there, you can decide if you want to talk about services. So that's one of the best ways that people are like, let me see what it's like to have a sales coach. Let's have
Right.
somebody work on something with me to see if it fits me. And
Hmm.
then I will be more committed to taking action, whether that's reading a book, because it's
Hmm.
not just reading it, it's applying the information. And
Hmm.
so you can buy the book, you can set one of those. So if you go to my website, www.salesproinsider.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and
Hmm.
you can, schedule, I believe, through that as well. So just start a conversation with me.
Sounds
And
good.
and I practice what I preach. So no pressure, just a
Right.
conversation.
Right. All right. Well, that's great. Well, Nancy, listen, I got a lot out of the webinar, and I'm going to start by reading the book myself. I've read about the book, but I'm actually looking forward to reading it. I think your approach very much resonates, with me a lot. And
Mhm.
no, and I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of it too. And I very much thank you for contributing, and thank you for being here. And it was really informative webinar, and I
Well,
really
I
thank you.
appreciate that you invited me. So, yeah, which, I know you and I will continue our conversations over time
Absolutely.
and everyone else. People need what you offer, and often you're what's in the way of them making that decision. So,
Mm.
do your part to guide the process so that they work with you.
No, that's
My
great.
final words.
Those are good final words. All right, thank you, Nancy. Bye,
You're
everyone,
welcome.
and we'll chat again soon. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome.